Promise maker, promise keeper, you finish what you began. Our provision through the deserts, you see it through to the end. You see it through to the end. The Lord our God is ever faithful, never changing through the ages. From this darkness, you will lead us, and forever we will say, you're the Lord our God. In the silence, in the waiting, still we can know you are good. All your plans are for your glory. Yes, we can know you are good. Yes, we can know you are good. The Lord our God is ever faithful, never changing through the ages. From this darkness, you will lead us, and forever we will say, you're the Lord our God. We won't move without you. We won't move without you. You're the light of all and all that we need. We won't move without you. We won't move without you. You're the light of all and all that we need. We won't move without you. We won't move without you. You're the light of all and all that we need. We won't move without you. We won't move without you. You're the light of all and all that we need. Yeah. The Lord our God is ever faithful, never changing through the ages. From this darkness, you will lead us, and forever we will say, you're the Lord our God. And forever we will say, you're the Lord our God. And forever we will say, you're the Lord our God.
If you're anything like me, this time of the year, it's almost like your life is on pause. Christmas is over, but the new year isn't here yet. We're in between big celebrations and really just trying to wind down after a busy weekend. And it's just kind of like this waiting room type of thing. It seems like life is just kind of on hold. But here's the great part about moments like this. We are perfectly poised to look back at last year while at the same time looking forward to next year. We can reflect on all the good and bad that we experienced these last 12 months and set our sights on where we want to be a year from now. And I think it's a great time to ask ourselves some questions being in this type of moment. Like, how were our finances this past year? Did we struggle? Did we succeed? Did we save as much as we'd hoped? What unexpected things came up that we weren't prepared for? And how do we want things to look next year? In our relationships, if we reflect on this last year, what comes to mind? For those of us who are married, were we happy with how our marriage looked last year? Did we grow closer to our spouse? Or did we grow further apart? Were we on the same page in the big decisions this year brought? Or did we fight and argue more than we wanted? If you could change something for next year, what would it be? How about with our kids? I mean, we love our kids so much and they grow up so fast. So did we spend as much time with them as we had hoped? Were we able to teach them about values and perspective, or was it everybody just fending for themselves while we ran from one activity to the next? What do you wish you could have done more with them? What do we hope they know by the end of 2022? And how about our emotional health? How were we mentally this past year? What do we hope is different a year from now? And listen, I'm not trying to criticize or condemn. All I'm doing is just helping us to ask questions, because this is a great time of year to ask and reflect and ponder. And here's really the big question for all of us. How would things look in your life if God was in control? I mean, I know He's in control of everything, but what if He was actually in control of our lives? You know, we just got done celebrating Christmas. Emmanuel, God with us, that the birth of Jesus means that God hasn't forgotten about us, that He's not distant from us, that He understands what we struggle with, that we can be right with Him, all for the purpose of having a vibrant, meaningful, personal relationship with God. So what would that relationship look like if it played out in all the different areas of our lives? You know, one of the very first scripture verses I memorized as a Christian was Romans 12, verses 1 and 2. Let me read it to you now. And so, dear brothers and sisters, I plead with you to give your bodies to God because of all He's done for you. Let them be a living and holy sacrifice, the kind He will find acceptable. This is truly the way to worship Him. Don't copy the behaviors and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. Then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect. In light of Christmas, because of all God has done for us, what would it look like in our life to actually live like this? I think everyone wants to know God's will for their lives, and sometimes God has something very specific for us. But more often than not, God's will for our lives is to live like what Paul described in Romans, to let God transform us from the inside out in all the different areas of life. What would that look like in our lives? Now, I can't give you any specific answers. I'm not in your shoes. I haven't lived your past 12 months. I'm not going to live your next 12 months. But here again, we can ask ourselves some questions. We can use this time to grow in our relationship with God. What would our calendar look like in 2022 if God were in charge of it? I'm guessing that's a question that not many of us even stop to ask, but I think it's a good place to start. How might your schedule change to more closely line up with God's good, pleasing, and perfect will if He could plan out our days? I mean, we don't need to try and discover God's will. There are some areas He's already made clear. Would there be enough quiet time with Him already scheduled? Or would He maybe block off some chunks of time where we could just focus on Him and enjoy His presence? How about church? I know we get busy and things come up and we have places to be and things to do, but what would God's heart be? Would He cut some other items so we could worship with other believers and be reminded of His eternal truths on a more regular basis? And listen, maybe we've already got that as a priority. That's awesome. I believe God would want us to keep it up. But maybe God would want us to make some adjustments. How would we know unless we take time to ask and to ponder? Here's a fun one for us. What would our bank accounts look like if God had total access to them? Now, don't turn off the video here. Remember, we're just asking ourselves questions. But if God looked at our spending habits from last year and could take control of our spending next year, what changes might He make? Were we generous with our finances last year? If so, how generous? Would God see our giving as a way of worshiping Him or not? Maybe our finances were great last year and God even blessed us with an abundance. Well, what might He want to do with that for next year? You know, so often we just assume that our money is ours to deal with, and all I'm suggesting is maybe we should invite God into the equation and actually follow His will for our lives. In our marriages, looking back at last year, looking forward to next year, what might God want us to do differently because of all He's done for us? You know, God has some pretty clear instructions for husbands and wives. For those of you who are wives, how would He want to adjust the way that you submit to and show respect to your husbands? For us husbands, how might He want us to love our wives more in line with how Christ loved the church? What would that look like for us? I mean, I have no idea for you, but His good, pleasing, and perfect will is there. Will we choose to live that out as a response to all He's done for us? With our kids, same thing. I mean, what things might God want us to do in our lives this next year to help us be better parents, to help us raise our kids and to know God themselves, to teach them godly values and morals? Would God want us to spend more or less time teaching them? More or less time disciplining them? More or less time having fun with them? More or less time modeling a relationship with God to them? More or less time with them in church, or something else entirely? There are so many areas of life where we can stop and ponder and try to discover what God's will might be for different areas of our lives. Our social media intake, what would God say? Our rest and relaxation, more or less from God's perspective. At our jobs, what's God's will as we go into the next year? I think if we're honest, most of us know what God would want us to do. But will this be the year we submit to Him or not? How might our lives look different if we offered up more of our lives to Him as a living and holy sacrifice, like Paul wrote? I want to leave you with one more scripture verse today, and it's found in Ephesians chapter 5, and Paul writes this: "So be careful how you live. Don't live like fools, but like those who are wise. Make the most of every opportunity in these evil days. Don't act thoughtlessly, but understand what the Lord wants you to do." As you reflect on 2021 and look forward to 2022, God is speaking to us. Be careful how we live. Be wise. Take the opportunities we've been given. And most importantly, invite God into our decision-making process more than ever before. Let's not just do what we've always done. This relationship with God that we can have because of Jesus is such an incredible gift. Let's enjoy Him. Let's lean on Him. Let's give more of our lives to Him. Maybe this next year, we can seek God's will in our life first and then go from there.
Once a slave, bound by chains created in my shame, searching in the dark, mercy came, restored new life inside my hopeless veins. I am forever changed. God, let me seek your kingdom first, longing to see heaven here on earth. I will not stop singing, Lord, your will be done. God, I will for your name, for all you've done and yet to do. I give my life to you. Holy fire, fan a flame.